Okay, yes. So, good morning, everyone. Today we'll be talking about diphtheria. So, out of all the prevent preventable diseases, diphtheria is one of the major preventable disease, which can be prevented by the National Immunization Schedule vaccine, which we give. Previously, it was DPT vaccine, but now we are giving a pentavalent vaccine, which contains DPT. So, let's start with the diphtheria lecture. As you can see in the slide, yes. So onset of the disease, diphtheria. It is rarely sudden and the symptoms are infrequently severe. Moderate temperature, 102 degree Fahrenheit, malaise, sore throat, and tired feeling is one of the most important clinical features. Sore throat is not marked initially. This delays the discovery of illness, which results in considerable amount of membrane formation. Membrane formation is due to necrosis of the epithelial cells, serofibrinous material liberated which form greenish white membrane. So this membrane is the pathognomic of diphtheria. So whenever you see a membrane near tonsils, on the throat, or in the fauces, so that can be or possibly diphtheria. Edges are cold or separated from the underlying mucous membrane and bleeds on peeling, and there is increased toxin absorption. Usually one tonsil is involved and soon spreads to the opposite side. Patient discovered late shows extension from tonsils to fauces to pharynx. In mixed infections by secondary bacterial invasion, for example, streptococci, is called septic diphtheria. Septic diphtheria, it is characterized by high-grade fever, atypical appearing membrane, and greater inflammation in surrounding structures. Clinical features, manifestations, there are local inflammation, membrane formation, and toxemia, and there are various forms of diphtheria like tonsillar diphtheria, pharyngeal diphtheria, laryngeal diphtheria, anterior laser diphtheria, and other forms. Tonsillar diphtheria is most common. Initially, it is a thin membranous spot, few millimeter on one tonsil, more often identified on two tonsils as grayish yellow membrane. Narrow area of redness surrounds the membrane, tender and enlarged submandibular lymph nodes. Fauces is normal. So this is a membrane over fauces. And as you can see, this is a membrane over tonsil. Pharyngeal diphtheria, membrane spreads to sides of vulva. Spread of membrane is anteriorly up to the teeth, from post-pillar to nasopharynx and then to nostrils. Early formed membrane gets necrotic as newer parts advance. This necrotic material produces foul smell or Hooter ori. When bleeding occurs, the membrane becomes full black mass of tissue, and throat tissue is congested. So, and there is a bull neck appearance. Bull neck, there is swelling of tissues in front of neck. Lymph nodes are not palpable. Patient is drowsy, pale, and tired. So, this is a bull neck, typical bull neck formation appearance in the diphtheria. We have another form of diphtheria, which is laryngeal diphtheria, primarily most commonly due to mites, secondary spread from fauces, and it may spread to trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. Symptoms are due to obstruction, huskiness of the voice, croupy cough, inspiratory distress, stridor, more common in children. Danger of laryngeal diphtheria is asphyxia, and tracheostomy can bring relief to the patient. So this membrane which is formed, that can lead to the congestion and obstruction of the respiratory tract, and most commonly it will lead to asphyxia and death of the patient. Anterior nasal discharge, which is initially thin and blunt stained, which later turn into thick and mucopurulent. The discharge contains Corynebacterium diphtheriae in large numbers. Thin yellowish membrane is present. Others, these include non-respiratory forms. They are skin, eye, intestines, genitourinary system, and diphtheretic endocarditis. Skin diphtheria is common in tropical regions, seen mostly on fingers and back of the hands, which spread from fauces. Punched out ulcers are seen. Eyes, secondary to the anterior nasal diphtheria, spreads through nasolacrimal duct and manifests as conjunctival diphtheria. Slogging of conjunctiva and corneal damages occurs. Rarely, panophthalmitis can be there. So this is a Skin diphtheria. So this is a skin sore which can be there in the skin diphtheria. Intestines secondary to faucial diphtheria, dysphagia, and bloody diarrhea with intestinal casts are seen and usually diagnosed at autopsy. Urogenital system transmitted through fingers by contact. In males, coronal sulcus and glands are involved, and in females, vulva and vagina are involved. Diphtheritic endocarditis, high fatality rate, but it is the rarest, caused by Clostridium cirrhosis, Corynebacterium cirrhosis, walls are involved. Complications of diphtheria, causes of complications is toxin. Severe complications are seen in naropharyngeal and laryngeal diphtheria. Earliest severe complication in nasopharyngeal diphtheria is myocarditis. Complications are rare in nasal, tonsillar, and pharyngeal diphtheria. These rarely cause otitis media, albuminuria, and parotonsillar abscess. Now, what are the cardiovascular complications? Myocarditis, either early or late myocarditis, and paralytic complications of palate, eyes, pharynx, larynx, respiratory muscles, limbs, heart, and encephalitis. There can be ECG changes with T wave inversion or flattening of T wave, lengthening of PR or QT interval, and usually patient recovers without any evidence of cardiac damage. Paralytic complications. Palatal paralysis is the most common, sets in third week and lasts for almost two weeks. Pronunciation is difficult because patient is unable to direct the lips. Eyes, blurred vision, paralysis of accommodation persists for a week. Convergent squint, lateral rectus paralysis. Pharyngeal paralysis, difficulty in swallowing, saliva is collected in the back of the throat. If larynx is also involved, aspiration can lead to the bronchial tree aspiration pneumonia. Laryngeal paralysis, loss of voice, and ineffective cough is present. Limbs, most commonly involved parts are dorsiflexor. Now, coming to the diagnosis of diphtheria. It is necessary for control and epidemiological purposes, but not for treatment. Treatment should be started immediately after suspicion of the disease. Clinical diagnosis, laboratory diagnosis, and diagnosis of susceptibility. Clinical diagnosis, onset of the disease, faucial diphtheria, thick, tough, yellowish gray membrane, gray back in center, and the patient looks ill. So, clinically, we can diagnose faucial diphtheria. Pharyngeal diphtheria, bull neck, which is the significant specific appearance of the diphtheria, can be seen. Lymph nodes are not palpable. Laryngeal diphtheria, membrane observed with a laryngoscope, and dry croppy cough is present. Nasal diphtheria, membrane is seen along the septum and turbinates, and diphtheric paralysis can be there. No clinical features of diphtheric paralysis are able to distinguish from other paralytic disease, especially poliomyelitis. Lab diagnosis, swabs from the throat, nose, larynx, skin, and tracheal exudates are cultured. Culture medium is Loeffler's serum flow. In doubtful cases, animal inoculation may be done by subcutaneous route. Smear staining is by Albert stain, and serological tests are also done. So this is how the Albert stain staining picture of Corynebacterium diphtheria can be seen. Virulence test, to test toxigenicity of the bacteriological examination to be complete. Two types, in vivo and in vitro. In vivo tests are done on guinea pig by subcutaneous test and intradermal test. In vitro tests are Elk's gel PPT test and tissue culture test. Schick's test, which is done for diagnosis of susceptibility of the diphtheria. It is a quantitative test which with regarding to circulating antitoxin. It is reliable test for susceptibility, useful in investigation of outbreaks and as a criteria for patient need for immunization. Used to test presence of antitoxins in the body. Hypersensitivity to diphtheria toxin. Test proper 0.2 ml of fluid containing measured dose of diphtheria toxin is injected intradermally into patient's left forearm. Similar amount of heat inactivated toxin is injected into the arm. Clinical interpretation of the Schick test, we can have positive, pseudo-positive, negative, and combined results. Positive result, if red circumscribed flash is seen in test arm measuring 10 to 50 millimeter, peak during 4 to 7 days, subject is susceptible to diphtheria. Pseudo-positive test means the red flush equally on both arms, but it is less circumscribed. Allergic reaction and interpretation is negative test. So this pseudo-positive means negative. Negative, there is no reaction. The subject is immune to diphtheria toxin. And combined test arm, true positive, susceptible to diphtheria. A person who is susceptible but allergic should be cautiously immunized. Management of diphtheria, diagnosis by clinical examination, direct microscopy using Albert stain, culture using Loeffler serum slope, and fluorescent antibody techniques, toxicity testing by L-class scale PPT, and diagnosis of susceptibility by Schick test. Differential diagnosis, nasal diphtheria can be foreign body in nose, rhinorrhea, or snuffles due to congenital syphilis. Fossil diphtheria can be acute streptococcal membranous tonsillitis, viral membranous tonsillitis, herpetic tonsillitis, thrush, or infectious mononucleosis. Laryngeal diphtheria differential diagnosis are CROP, acute epiglottitis, laryngio-tracheobronchitis, retropharyngeal abscess, peritonsillar abscess, or bronchopneumonia. In treatment of a case of diphtheria, principles are isolation, neutralization of free circulating toxin by administration of antitoxin, antibiotics to eliminate bacteria, and supportive and symptomatic therapy and management of complications. So isolation, all cases should be promptly isolated for at least 14 days or until proved free of infection. At least 2 consecutive samples taken from sites of lesion taken 24 hours apart should be negative before terminating the isolation. Antitoxin interferes with the action of toxin and modifies the attack. Administered as soon as infection with diphtheria is suspected and given by intramuscular or intravenous injection after testing sensitivity to antitoxin serum. After administration of antitoxin, patient is observed closely for anticipated reduction in constitutional symptoms and toxemia. Dosage depends on duration of illness and extent and severity of lesion. For pharyngeal or laryngeal, antitoxin dosage of 20,000 to 40,000 units is enough. For diphtheria of 48 hours duration and nasopharyngeal lesions, 40,000 to 6,000 units may be required. Extensive disease of 3 or more days duration, or patient suffering with swelling of neck, and there are complications and bull neck and asphyxia, and severity of the disease is more than 80,000 to 1,20,000 units of antitoxin may be required. Antibiotics are used to terminate the toxin production, to limit proliferation of bacteria, and to prevent spread of organism to contact, to prevent development of carrier state. Procaine penicillin 3 to 6 lakh units intramuscular at 12 hourly interval is recommended till the patient is able to swallow. Oral penicillin 125 to 250 milligram 4 times a day, or erythromycin 25 to 30 milligram per kg per day, divided into 4 doses, is substituted when the patient is able to swallow for a total period of 14 days. Supportive therapy, bed rest for 2 to 3 weeks, avoid sudden exertion, observe the patient closely for changes in rate and rhythm of heart. Antipyretics and sedatives may be given if required. Easily digestible high calorie diet should be advised. And treatment of carriers, patient convalescent from diphtheria or persons harboring organism 2 weeks or longer are termed as carriers of diphtheria. The carriers should be treated with 10-day course of oral erythromycin. Prognosis depends on extent of membrane, ability of organism to produce toxin, and immunity status of the patient. If membrane is limited to nostrils, toxicity is negligible. If membrane is present in both tonsils, patient may develop palatal paralysis. If membrane extends beyond tonsils involving palate and nasopharynx, patient may suffer from any of or all of the severe complications. If there is hemorrhage, the prognosis is grave. Diphtheria paralysis is temporary condition and recovery when occurs is complete. Prevention. The 4 key strategies are required to ensure continued prevention and control of diphtheria. Primary prevention by ensuring high population immunity, strengthened surveillance, early diagnosis and high quality case management, and rapid investigation and the management of close contact should be done. Prevention is of 2 types, immunization and health education. Immunization can be divided into active, passive, and combined. Active immunization with combined vaccines or single vaccines, and passive by anti-serum. Combined vaccines we have DPT, DTaP, and DT or small dt. And single vaccines we have formal toxide APT, PT, AP, PTaP, PT, AHT, and AF. So combined vaccines, example is DPT vaccine, 2 types, plain and adsorbed. Adsorption is usually done on a mineral carrier. Adsorption increases the immunological effectiveness of the vaccine. Composition, diphtheria toxoid uh, in Glaxo and Kasoli, there is a difference. Diphtheria toxoid 25 in Glaxo and 30 in Kasoli. Tetanus toxoid 5 and 10. Uh, Bacillus pertussis in millions 20,000 and 32,000. Al- Aluminum phosphate 2.5 milligram in Glaxo, 3 milligram in Kasoli, and thiomersal BP 0.01% in both. Storage, DPT or DT vaccine should not be frozen. They should be stored in a refrigerator between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Temperature extremes may adversely affect the suspendability of the vaccine. When issued to a subcenter, it should be used within a week. If they are suspected to be frozen, they can be determined by shake test. The procedure for shake test: prepare a frozen control sample, choose a test sample, check the control and test samples for 10 to 15 seconds, allow the test, allow both of them to rest, and compare the vials. So after doing shake test, the frozen and non-responsive vaccine vial will have coagulates of the diphtheria or coagulates in the vaccine. So that coagulant which is formed, that vial should be discarded because it is inactivated by freezing. So the vials which gets evenly distributed, the liquid is clear, and there is no any coagulant, that vial should be used. So this is the importance of shake test. Now the contraindications for vaccines: allergy or anaphylactic reaction to a previous dose of DPT vaccine is the absolute contraindication. Relative contraindications are hypotonic hyporesponsive episodes, which are acronym is HHE. Deferral or P component of DPT should be considered in children with a progressive neurologic condition, including seizures, reinstituted when condition has resolved. If immunization with P containing vaccine is contraindicated or deferred, DTaP or DT vaccine can be given. Effective immunization of individuals more than 6 months should be deferred during an outbreak of poliomyelitis. DTaP. Now, what is DTaP? DT small a and P. Unlike P component in DPT, which contains toxic whole cell of pertussis bacteria, DTaP or DT small a and P contains only a few detoxified components which can still spark immunity. A stands for acellular. The DTaP A stands for acellular pertussis. If immunization with P containing vaccine is contraindicated or deferred, DTaP can be given. It is given by injection into arm or thigh. DT, only diphtheria and tetanus, can be given to children more than 7 years of age. Small d capital T is the adult vaccine that protects against diphtheria and tetanus. It has 1/10 dose of diphtheria toxoid than present in DPT or capital DT. Passive immunization by administration of serum containing antitoxin prepared in hot serum. Dose is prophylactic 500 to 2000 units by subcutaneous or intramuscular injections. Therapeutic dose is 10,000 to 30,000 units by intramuscular injection or 40,000 to 1 lakh units by IV injection in 2 divided doses with an interval of half to 2 hours. The protection against diphtheria by administration of an antitoxin is a quantitative phenomenon. So this is all about diphtheria. So remember, this is one of the major vaccine preventable disease and one of the most commonly asked questions in practical examinations, in vivas, and in theory examinations. So the DPT vaccine, which was previously used, now we are using pentavalent vaccine. So pentavalent vaccine has got 5 components, which includes diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, and along with these 3, it also has Haemophilus influenza B and hepatitis B. Okay, and the vaccine schedule is at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. So these 3 doses of this pentavalent vaccine, which includes the diphtheria antitoxin, are to be given in the dose schedule. First dose at 6 weeks, second dose at 10 weeks, and third dose at 14 weeks, followed by first booster at 1.5 years of age, which is 16 to 18 months, and second boosters at 5 years of age. So the first booster, we are not giving pentavalent vaccine. First booster at 1.5 year, we are giving DPT vaccine, and followed by the second booster at 5 years, with the same DPT vaccine. Okay, so that's all about diphtheria prevention and the basics of diphtheria. Uh, if there are any questions, you can just ask them to me. That's all about today's topic. Okay, bye and take care.